Zest Achilles signifies stamina, defense, and attack combined into one to form the most versatile Beyblade going up against different types of opponents. Achilles, of course, signifies this through its left spin or right spin, counterclockwise or clockwise spin direction orientation, where you change the Achilles chip and flip the blade. You also have, of course, the sword orientation with the blue notch here, or the defense orientation, the shield orientation, where the blue attachment is placed on the other side. As well, you have the high mode and low mode, which is used by the DB system of the armor depending on top or bottom where you place it. And last but not least, you have the Quattro Dash Driver, which has 4 different modes: attack, stamina, defense, and balance, featuring rubber and metal, making this a very versatile Beyblade. And we're going to try it out against different types of BU and DD opponents, trying out which mode is the best for each situation and how good it is when you use it to its max potential. So we're going to go through the 6 types of bays, counterclockwise and clockwise, stamina, defense, attack, maybe balance, and just try out some modes on Achilles to see what mode beats each bay. And so first opponent, Ultimate Valkyrie, a clockwise right spinning attack type. We're going to go with a low mode shielded Achilles with a balance mode in the Unite Dash tip. Okay, massive counterattack there. That's not exactly what we want. Another massive KO by Valkyrie. The Unite mode doesn't seem to be working properly. Let's try it a third time. Okay, a third massive KO by Valkyrie. The Unite Dash mode definitely isn't working. So a different approach, we're going to go with a counterclockwise sword mode with balance mode to try and counterattack instead of just sitting there and defending. So this should help it counterattack instead of exactly like that. Just like that. So see, instead of just sitting there and relying on, oh my god. Instead of just sitting there and relying on staying inside from Valkyrie's hits, it will actually counterattack and use the sword mode that we have to hit Valkyrie and KO it instead. So using the counterclockwise balance mode, sword mode, we can beat Valkyrie, a clockwise spinning attack type. Okay, against a counterclockwise spinning attack type, Guilty Longinus, we're going to try a counterclockwise spinning shield mode with the stamina metal tip to try and get a wider surface area and stay in the stadium while still spinning at our maximum capacity for stamina. So let's try this. Solid. Guilty Longinus has a lot of power to it though, so it's going to be hitting a lot harder than Valkyrie, that's for sure. Maybe not as fast. Solid. Achilles is doing a pretty good job of minimizing the recoil because of its height, and it takes that one win. Not convincing enough, so we're going to do a second try and launch a little harder, a little more flat. Definitely hitting harder. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay. So Achilles is definitely slowing down. The question is, will it outspin? And yes, it does, just barely. Well, let's do a third round just because that was a little too close for comfort. We want to really see what modes can beat a bay. Yeah, see, that was kind of a hunch I had. It wouldn't completely beat Guilty. But it should be able to consistently do it most of the time. Especially because the outside of the stadium is kind of Guilty Longinus' domain. So if we stay towards the inside, we should be able to minimize the contact. And just like that, you outspin it. So with counterclockwise stamina mode, with shield mode and low mode, we're able to beat a counterclockwise spinning attack type. And so in this case, you might think we go with a ball mode against Cyclone Ragnarok, but my thinking is that because we have a higher setup and a circular disc, we can use the shield mode, which is this mode, and the sharp tip mode. This is because it's metal, whereas this is plastic, and if we can push Ragnarok under us, we should be able to get the outspin simply through the sharp tip. Now, stamina is a lot more consistent than attack, so if it beats Ragnarok, we'll know. If it beats Ragnarok even once, that's pretty much how it's gonna go. You can actually hear the wings just hitting Achilles. Yeah, there it is. Achilles is so much bigger, you can see. It just gets that outspin so easily because it pushes down on the bay. And using a similar type of bay to Ragnarok, Chain Kirbius, or Phoenix, Fortress Yard, which is metal in this case, we're going to stick with the same mode because Kirbius is a lower setup, and we're going to try to push it underneath us with clockwise shielded stamina mode. So this is the setup you would normally want to use, especially against like defense types in the same spin direction. Now, of course, they're not going to make as much contact, but this should be interesting to see. Yeah, so Kirbius is just pushing under it. It's very interesting because something like Achilles, once you get to know how the modes actually work, you have the potential to pretty much beat any bay you come across. Because you have unlimited modes. Now, speaking of Dynamite Battle, which is essentially what Achilles will be battling here, the only two counterclockwise spinning defense types are Astral Spriggan in this specific mode, or Roar Bahamut, both of which have very high levels of same spin stamina and won't exactly get knocked out easily. So it's hard to think about which mode to try against it, but the first natural thing would just be to try and knock it out. Although it is a defense type, that's just the only way I see it winning, because Achilles doesn't have the pure stamina, especially against Astral Spriggan here, to go up against it. And so that was my horrible attempt of trying to use Achilles in shielded balance mode. After numerous self-KOs with Unite Dash off camera that I skipped out in editing, we're just going to try and outspin this in shielded low mode defense mode, because I really don't see any other way, seeing that off camera, of course, knockouts failed. And if it doesn't work, let's just say Achilles cannot beat in front of defense type. Okay, so one thing is that Achilles is much more balanced. It's a lot more stable than Spriggan, because Spriggan, as in Astral Spriggan, is a very weird thing on its, like, core, which is, yeah, okay, see? The thing is, Astral is a much better blade than Zest because it's more aggressive, it has upward blades and downward blades, and it's just better for stamina. And so the final opponent is a counterclockwise spinning stamina type, in which there aren't too many of them, and that's essentially what we just had, Astral. It's just that Fafnir is just, it's gonna be Fafnir, and it's classified as a stamina type, but Fafnir has always been actually more of a defense type than it has been a stamina type. Like, Geist Fafnir is a lot more defensive and thick. Wizard Fafnir sucks, but the Rise Driver is much better for counterattacking and anti-attacking than actual stamina. And Mirage Fafnir is different, could be classified as different, but let's try Vanish Fafnir against Achilles in shielded stamina mode. Just we're gonna pure outspin this. Pure outspin. Just pure stamina, we're gonna outspin Fafnir. So, just to recap, we were able to beat Valkyrie, and we were able to beat Longinus. So Longinus, we used counterclockwise spinning stamina mode, as we did here, which basically, given the wider surface area, was able to, like, keep the bay in the stadium with the right amount of, like, friction, but still, like it is doing here, stay on the sharp tip and able to maintain its stamina. With Valkyrie, we used the counterclockwise spinning balance mode with Unite to kind of just counterattack, and it was able to beat Valkyrie after many knockouts. Against Kirbius and Ragnarok, we pretty much just outspun it with the right spin stamina mode because of our height advantage, which is something Quattro Dash is nice for, and of course here we were able to straight outspin Fafnir. One thing is that we usually won't be able to beat counterclockwise spinning defense types. Now, there is one more thing I would want to try, and that is something like Excalibur. Now, something like Divine, Greatest Raphael you could outspin, Burst Spriggan you could beat an opposite spin, and of course Prominence Phoenix you could outspin. Those are pretty obvious. Divine Belial is much heavier, so you'd want to go with the right spinning balance mode to try and like avoid contact around the outside. Pretty simple. But Excalibur is interesting because I just want to see how that would work. So we're going to go with a counterclockwise shielded defense, or I guess unite mode, and just do this last clockwise attack type. It's got a much different style of attack. See, Excalibur has a much different style of being aggressive and attacking than Valkyrie. It's like Longinus. It doesn't go fast, it hits hard. And as I was saying, it hit heavy, not... Okay, it hits heavy, not hard. Let's get this on the launcher. And that's the extent of Achilles. It took those hits very nicely. Was able to stay in. We're gonna launch a little lighter. Yeah, right there. That was the perfect counterattack. It went around the ridge and it just KO'd it. And Excalibur even activated the sword. So that's very nice. Excalibur obviously hits a lot harder. We're gonna do one last round, just for final. Yeah, okay, so of course Excalibur against Achilles is a dicey matchup because not only does Excalibur have the sword dash driver, which does have decent stamina. I say decent because it's kind of like iron, just jaggy. It's also a lot heavier, so it's not like Guilty Longinus where you can just twist it and scrape on the destroy driver. It's also not as light because it doesn't have something like Karma to hold it back. Excalibur is actually very hard hitting, even more so than Longinus because of how heavy it is. So Excalibur is very different, but you can see from the demonstrations we have put that Achilles is a very, very versatile bay because of its many different modes, and you can use all these different modes no matter what bay you're battling against. Achilles, as the quote-unquote perfect balance type, is able to beat a different type of opponent using a different type of mode, and there's always some type of mode that should be able to get the job done, whether it be using a more aggressive shape, a more circular shape to reduce recoil, or a counterattack-esque or a sharp tip-esque surface area kind of strategy. No matter how you play it, there's usually a way to beat your opponents, even if it is against something like left Astral Spriggan in defense mode. There's always a way, I just haven't really figured it out yet, especially because there's so many modes to go through that it would take hours to try them all out specifically. But that will be it for this video. Let me know if you want me to do a similar type of thing with Astral Spriggan, because it's essentially the same thing, but it's a little different because it doesn't have the sword or shield attachments like Achilles does. And it's also bursts easier, like Quattro, so it's a little bit harder to figure out the specific modes because it doesn't have as many, but it definitely should try and beat all the opponents. It's a little more simple. So that'll be it for today's video. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and don't forget to keep on blading.